Welcome to the Authority File, the podcast that features conversations about the life cycle of scholarly communication. I'm Bill Mickey, your host and the editorial director at Choice. In this 4-episode series, which is generously underwritten by Springer Nature, we're discussing how Springer's publishing operation, particularly in the STEM field, is evolving to meet the requirements of open access while managing the opportunities and challenges posed by artificial intelligence. Joining me to talk through this is Harman Ben Paradis, Vice President, STM Books Publishing and Books Business Optimization at Springer Nature. But before we get started, if you want to keep up on the latest programming from the Authority File, you can subscribe to our monthly newsletter for information on the current and previous month's episodes. To subscribe, simply visit choice360.org, click on the newsletter sign-up banner in the top right corner, and select the Choice Podcast Updates option. While you're there, you can also sign up for other newsletters published by Choice. In this second episode of our series, we talk about the AI tools that researchers in Springer are using that assist with the research workflow. You've mentioned that authors are often at the forefront of using new AI tools or implementing new practices into their research processes. How does Springer track and communicate with authors on these changes? I mean, is there a relationship between Springer as a publisher and then researchers in terms of how the researchers are actually conducting their research and looking at new ways to do that?
Yeah, good question. It happens actually at many different levels.
Mm-hmm.
So our, let's say, main way of operating is our acquisitions editors talk to authors, potential authors. Again, that one-to-one relationship.
Right.
So there's a lot of, let's call it, anecdotal evidence or anecdotal feedback that we try to collate and see if there's anything there. But it does happen at that lower level, if you will, the one-to-one relationship. We also conduct in certain times and certain places researcher workshops to really get together with academics and get into what's happening. Not so much at a discipline level, but as a how do you work? What are new ways of working? What trends do you see? We're not going to dictate what a discipline should look like, because that really is a territory of research, of course.
Right.
But we do need to know, what are the authors, what are the academics seeing as new ways they would like to work, new formats, for example, that they would like to work in, new ways of collaborating. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
collaboration, of course, is a huge topic across different research institutes or different universities.
Right.
How do you bring people together? With so many universities, so many academics, you can't cover everybody. Absolutely not.
Right.
But we do try to tap into that in certain ways through those workshops, as I mentioned.
Yeah. Are these like communities of practice or something that you'll set up with researchers or?
Yeah, and sometimes yes, and sometimes that is more university based or
Hmm.
department that's really into that. In other At other times, we will bring people together that we think has something to add.
Yeah.
So it could work both ways,
Right.
where it's initiated by us, or we get a request from a department or a university to really work with them.
Excellent. All right. So maybe we can move into some examples. I mean, I'm wondering if you see authors adapting and using AI tools in their research, writing and editing. I mean, I know you've mentioned Springer is already offering some tools that they can use on the production side of things, but what are you seeing them independently using to help them conduct their research?
It's a very interesting question, and this is, of course, really quite topical now
Yeah. Hmm.
with Chat GPT and GPT. Of course, I would say it's not so much in the open that authors are saying, oh, I've used a GPT or I'm using Chat GPT.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little bit still covered in a way. It's getting a little bit more open. It's getting a little bit more mainstream. We actually published a book, I think it was late last year, which was basically on prompt engineering for academic writing
Yep.
using ChatGPT. So yeah, there are academics are using it, are working with it. Um, there is, of course, and then we get into the integrity territory, which we'll
Right.
talk about later on.
Mm-hmm.
How much do you use it and where do you use it? You already alluded to, editing and language editing is, of course, an area where they use it. We see
Yep.
that. We also let's say encourage that because it does make the manuscript better. One specific area that we actually do try to help the author is research and research output. A book manuscript is not necessarily always written in English.
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody's well versed in English.
Right.
We want to be global. We're a global publisher. So working, for example, with an author in Japan who is a native speaker of Japanese, but not of English,
Mm-hmm.
we offer so-called auto translation tools using GPT to say, well, you've got your manuscript in Japanese. Here is a draft version in English that's gone through a translation tool,
Mm-hmm.
which you can now use to actually refine your English language manuscript. And this is a service that we offer because we do believe that there's very good research out there in languages other than English.
Right.
A lot in Portuguese, for example, from Brazil, in Spanish from South America, um, where we do want to provide the opportunity for everybody to be read
Mm-hmm.
globally.
I'm curious if that has sort of changed, the editing process on the publisher side at all? Or, I mean, I imagine you must have had sort of the manual approach to translation services prior to AI tools. I mean,
Yep.
has that had a big impact on the publishing process on Springer's side?
We did have, and I myself, I was an acquisitions editor a long time ago. So we worked with freelancers who actually word for word translated a manuscript.
Mm-hmm.
It's a costly affair.
Yeah.
So we did it sparingly for relatively few books
Okay.
that we found very important. But you're talking, at that time, I was even talking about like $8,000 for a book, and then we're talking 15 years ago. So
Yeah.
you can
Right.
imagine that cost now is doubled,
Mm-hmm.
or at least doubled. So from a business point of view, if you've got, for example, GPT, or in the past we used to use DeepL, tools that really can do, let's say, 80 or 90% of that, and then have a so-called light edit on top
Right.
of that.
Mm-hmm.
You're quicker, you're more efficient, and from a cost point of view, it makes much more sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Going, sticking with that theme, I'm wondering if you see, or if Springer is evolving in other ways, inside the sort of editorial and production process as researchers begin to use AI for a greater variety of the research workflows. And I'm just thinking, for detection purposes, or I guess just kind of keeping tabs on how AI is influencing the process of creating research.
Yeah, and this is, of course, very, very topical nowadays.
Yeah.
If you just look at Retraction Watch, for example, you can
Yeah.
see all the items that pass by. You know, it's what is it? 90% is AI related. So there's a couple of tools that we have developed in house, and that we integrate into our systems. The first one's actually it's an in-house tool that detects nonsense text.
Mm.
It's called Geppetto, where if somebody just makes up research, that tool is able to detect, well, this text or this paragraph or this chapter does not make sense. The words that are used in a normal situation are not used together
Hmm.
in a sentence or in a paragraph or in a chapter. Um, a rating actually it comes out of that, but then a person does need to go through and say, well, this came out of the Geppetto, but is that true? Not,
Is it
so
correct?
you do need to have that human check.
Yeah.
Um, Interestingly, going off on a little bit of a tangent, that tool, we actually donated that to the SCM Association. So for the wider community to actually use that as well.
Mm.
Uh, Signaling, this is so important that we
Right.
all work together, because we don't want this unethical behavior,
Hmm.
content that's just unethical to be published.
Right.
And let me just continue with another tool that we've produced, which is called Referee. So this is basically a reference checker where we check if the references are in line, if they're relevant to the book, because you could put any reference into your reference list,
Hmm.
um, but it does need to apply to the actual content. So that's another tool that we've developed in house. So you've got your text part, your nonsense text, you've got your reference checker. Um, yeah, two ways to look at it, but just to confirm, you always do need the person, a human, to actually look at the text,
Right.
either to check the outcome of the tool, or to have let's say a third set of eyes on the manuscript.
Right. The old human in the loop
It's yeah,
process. Yeah.
we still need it.
Hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You just heard from Harman Van Paradis, Vice President, STM Books Publishing and Books Business Optimization at Springer Nature. Join us next week when we discuss how to maintain research integrity in the age of AI, including the specific concerns Springer is hearing from academic libraries, how the publisher is protecting integrity across different subject areas, and what detection tools look like in practice. This series is underwritten with generous support from Springer Nature. Remember, if you want to keep up on the latest programming from the Authority File, you can subscribe to our monthly newsletter for information on the current and previous month's episodes. To subscribe, simply visit choice360.org, click on the newsletter sign-up banner in the top right corner, and select the Choice Podcast Updates option. While you're there, you can also sign up for other newsletters published by Choice. The Authority File podcast is brought to you every week by a small but extraordinary team, including Choice's advertising manager Pam Marino, digital media producer Sabrina Kofer, and digital media assistant Ashley Roy. That's all for this week. Thanks for joining us.